Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "Sure, we'll take that aluminum panel off of your fence." This story doesn't actually involve me, but my father. Background: my parents bought a property on the beach because it's their happy place and they didn't want to stay at hotels anymore. The place is an older property that needed a lot of love, so we've been renovating it for a good year in our spare time. Our neighbor is an older lady who runs the small motel next door. From the very beginning, she's been quite an annoyance, constantly doing and saying manipulative things as favors to make us feel like we owe her something, which usually ends in her being allowed to use parts of our property. Fun fact, an inspector that was checking on the renovations once saw her coming towards him and quipped, "Here comes trouble." So the main story involves the side of our property that we share with her. There's a fence that she built and a small alleyway between the fence and our house, which is ours and has a hose shower area for when you come back from the beach and want to get the sand off of you. As part of the renovations, my dad had some small aluminum panels put in on our side of the fence so that the users of the shower could have privacy. The panels are not visible from the neighbor's property and are completely unobtrusive. Neighbor sees them while passing by and freaks. Frantically calls and texts my dad begging for a call back and saying it's an emergency. My dad makes time to call, assuming the hose might have broken or something. Nope. Just the neighbor throwing a hissy fit over the panels. "Take them down," she insists. My dad is a very busy man and has already had enough of my neighbor's constant annoyances. Her claiming an emergency just for these panels finally made him snap. The malicious compliance, my dad, the amicable man he is, agrees to take the panels down. As part of the renovations, he also has a gate put in front of that small alleyway area. This is not good for my neighbor, because she had made an agreement with my father to use our hose so that her guests could rinse themselves off when coming back from the beach. This precious hose is now behind a locked gate, the key for which my neighbor will not be seeing. On top of that, my father put a chain in front of the parking area of our house, which she was using as extra space for her guests, and where our trash cans are kept. Trash cans which said neighbor was using to throw away her extra trash. Now, our neighbor will have to pay extra for a better water plan for her motel, something she was well aware of and trying to avoid, as she had previously told my dad about the numbers for water plans on her property versus ours, and possibly pay for extra trash cans for her trash. My dad is a very patient man and very hard to get angry, but once you do, you're gonna regret it. The next one is titled, "Don't Tell Me My Dog Is Fat." It was many years ago now that I was a locum veterinarian in a small suburban veterinary clinic. For the most part, the clients were a pleasure to work with, were receptive to the advice and instructions given to them by the staff in regards to their pets, and it generally made my time working there a placid experience. Every rare once in a while though, a client's account would be flagged as non-compliant. This usually meant a client who didn't follow medication instructions, post-operative procedures, scheduled rechecks, general health advice, and so forth, usually resulting in cases not progressing as well as they should have. Of course, some of these clients would also complain about said poor outcome, and the fault was, of course, never theirs. Enter one particular Ms. Noncom. Since I was only a part-time locum, working every other weekend at the time at this particular clinic, I seldom saw a client more than once unless they specifically requested to see me again. As such, I had never met Ms. Noncom before, but plastered at the top of her file was the dreaded non-compliant. Ms. Noncom owned a Jack Russell Terrier that had an extensive history with the clinic, and as I browsed the history of the patient prior to the consultation to familiarize myself with them, it was painfully obvious that Jack was far too fat to be healthy. In fact, there was enough of Jack to make another Jack, with some Jack to spare. Jack was due his annual vaccination and check-up, and so I asked them to enter the consultation room, which they did at a leisurely pace due to the fact that Jack was barely able to keep up with Ms. Noncom, who was herself not particularly fast due to her own bodily dimensions. It was somewhat apparent why Jack was struggling with weight issues when his own owner was apparently having the same difficulties. Typically in a situation like this, I would be as careful as could be not to offend the owner or make any assumptions about their current bodily state, as it's common for large owners to likewise have large pets, and suggestions have to be made appropriately without blatantly putting too much blame on the owner. However, my desire to be tactful went straight out the window when Ms. Noncom, with a sour expression on her face which also appeared to have the remnants of a candy bar smeared on one cheek, heaved her panting Jack onto the table and greeted me with an irritable, "Jack needs his needles, and don't tell me my dog is fat." Very well. Jack was only 5 years old, far too young to be the size he was, though no pet of any age should ever be as fat as he was, and his history had revealed a host of maladies that resulted from his size. Abrasive skin damage of his chest and belly from dragging on the ground. Skin fold dermatitis. Recurrent yeast infections of his ear canals that were squeezed shut by a neck that was no longer a neck, but merely a globular extension of his thorax. Degenerative joint disease. Upper airway disease. The list went on. Now unfortunately, one shortcoming of the clinic I worked at was the senior veterinarian there who owned the practice was a very senior fellow indeed who had long lost his passion for the job, and seemed to be content to just let things slide with the more difficult clients, treating the patients symptomatically rather than addressing the underlying problem. I decided that now was the time to assert my new blood. I have a habit that as I gather the history of the patient from the last time they were seen, I dictate it to myself as I type it into the history of the file. This gives the client a chance to correct anything I may have misheard, or add something they remember as I repeat it. And thus I did with Jack, complying with Ms. Noncom's desire that I do not tell her that her dog was fat. The patient at presentation of the consultation is morbidly obese and at weigh-in is half a kilo heavier than at last consultation, presenting with moderate to severe dyspnea likely complicated by excess adipose tissue deposition in and around the thorax. I looked up from my typing. "How much are you feeding Jack these days?" Ms. Noncom shot me a poisonous look, but perhaps because she hadn't met me before and thought perhaps I hadn't quite heard her entering remark, responded, "He's getting 2 meals a day, what you recommended last time I was here. Should all be in your records there." It certainly was. The amount recommended should have been fine to encourage weight loss even in the face of limited exercise. So I forged on with my history writing. Patient is consuming recommended diet but has failed to shed any excess body mass since last seen 5 months ago. Another sideways glance from Ms. Noncom, and this time her cheeks flushed a little. I proceeded with the physical exam of the patient, and with each problem I noted as a result of his being overweight, I used a different synonym. Hefty, rotund, enlarged, bloated, and a variety of other fat but not fat words were used as I typed up the findings, and in my peripheral vision I could see Ms. Noncom's complexion slowly turn from pink, to tomato, to beetroot. It was when I reached the point of Jack carrying a lot of weight to the opera that she exploded. "Carrot, how dare you? Stop telling me." I mustered my most pained look I could manage. "But ma'am, I never once used the word you explicitly told me not to use. And as for there being nothing that can be done, the history states you've refused testing to determine if he has thyroid, adrenal, or other disease that may be complicating his weight loss. This really isn't in his best interests. If money is an issue, we do have payment plans that can help spread out the cost of such testing." I didn't get to finish, as Ms. Noncom scooped Jack off the table, berating me and the entire staff of the clinic as she rumbled her person out of the clinic as fast as she could, and swearing that my boss would hear about this. No sooner had the door shut I heard the nursing staff burst out giggling, and my boss poked his head out of the adjoining consult room where I'm sure he'd heard the entire exchange. He simply sighed, shrugged, and said, "Well, I didn't hear you say the word fat once," before closing the door. I later learned that Ms. Noncom had returned the following week when I was not present, and not only had Jack vaccinated after complaining to my boss, but also conceded to having blood work done, which revealed an underactive thyroid. Jack was subsequently started on thyroid supplementation, and by the following year was a much healthier and appropriate weight. The next one is titled, "I called my patient's mistress, but I was just doing what I was told." This happened back in 2009. I was working part-time at a doctor's office while I was in nursing school. I was one of the receptionists and did all the filing and cataloging and such. It was boring work, but the doctor, my boss, guaranteed me a job after nursing school, so that's why I did it. This particular doctor was an orthopedic surgeon. We had lots of patients coming in for MRIs, CT scans, and X-rays. This one particular patient, Frank, was scheduled to have surgery in a couple days and he needed to come and pick up his MRIs and X-rays from our office and bring them with him to his procedure. Yes, looking back at how backwards things used to be is so frustrating. All these things are 100% electronic now, and even back then they were too, but my boss was old school. So anyway, I called Frank to tell him to come pick up his images, but he didn't answer. I called him again during lunch, but still no answer, so I left him a message. The following day I called him again, but still no answer. It was imperative that Frank got his images or else he wouldn't be able to have his surgery. So I looked in his file to see if he had any other contact information. He listed his home phone number, as well as his wife's cell. I called his house and left a message, and I also called his wife, Amy, but she didn't answer either, so I left her a message as well. The office manager, Diane, told me to just call whoever was listed in his emergency contacts because if Frank didn't get his images and missed his surgery, then she would have to do a whole new stack of paperwork to reschedule him and she didn't want to be bothered. I looked to see if there was an emergency contact, and Frank listed a woman named Helen. Relation to patient? Girlfriend. I told Diane I didn't want to call Helen when I had already left a message for Amy, as it would put me in an awkward position. Diane said that as long as the patient listed them as an emergency contact, I could call them. She also said that it's not uncommon for couples to be separated but still legally married for insurance reasons, and that this could possibly be the case for Frank and Amy, which I guess made sense. I really wanted to believe that no one would be stupid enough to put their secret lover as their emergency contact. I didn't want to get fired for being insubordinate, so I called Helen and she actually answered her phone. I was secretly hoping she wouldn't, and told her Frank's images needed to be picked up prior to his surgery. She came by during lunch, got the images, and then left. I immediately called Frank again to let him know that Helen picked up his images and to not worry about it, but this fool wasn't answering his phone, so I left him another message. A couple hours later, Amy called back and said she wasn't able to answer before because she was teaching, but she got our message and was coming to pick up Frank's images now that school was done for the day. I told her that the images had already been picked up. I tried to be as vague as possible. Amy, who picked them up? I know Frank is still busy at his office and hasn't had the chance to come get them. Me, again, trying really hard to be vague, we called someone from his emergency contact list. Amy, was it his brother, Steve? Me, at this point I'm really nervous. No, not his brother. Amy, well then who? Me, Helen. Amy, who is Helen? I don't know anyone named Helen. Me, I'm not sure, but since she was on Frank's emergency contact list and no one else was answering their phone, we called her and she already came and got the images. Confused, Amy hung up. The following day was Frank's surgery. The day after Frank's surgery, my boss jokingly asked me, "What the hell did you do to that guy?" He came in upset saying that my secretary told his wife about his other girlfriend. I told my boss what happened and that Diane told me to call the girlfriend, and he understood. Diane tried to throw me under the bus by saying I didn't tell her that Helen was Frank's girlfriend, and that I had told her Helen was just a friend, and that she never would have given me the green light to call a patient's mistress. But I reminded her in front of my boss that she had said it was possible for Frank and Amy to be married but separated. This witch was trying to cover her butt because she probably thought it was some kind of HIPAA violation, but nothing ever happened. I was 18 years old at the time and just did whatever my superiors told me because I was really thirsty for job security after college, but I ended up not working there and went to work at a hospital instead. The next one is titled, "Can't Take Work Truck Home, I Can Walk." This happened back in 2012. At where I worked, the equipment operators got to take the work truck home until the boss got mad one day. He calls me, tells me that nobody but Jerry can take the truck home anymore since nobody but him takes care of the trucks. There was 5 of us operators and this ticked me off since I personally took very good of the truck, kept it clean, changed oil and fuel filters, and didn't let the truck idle all day like the others. At home I had a very nice BMW E39 540 i6 and my wife's Jeep. I'm not driving a BMW to work at a labor job. So what to do? Well, just happens I live very close to work, maybe 1 mile, probably less. It's summer, I'll just walk. If I cut through yards it took me only 15 minutes to walk to work. 2 days pass, I see one of the other operators driving the work truck home. He says he has no ride to work. Next day boss calls me up, "You can take the work truck home, you don't need to walk. This is small town American, nobody walks around here." A few people asking why his employee was walking to work was enough. Nobody still takes care of the trucks, they still take them home, some of them don't even have a license. Great place where I work, isn't it? The next one is titled, "Maliciously Complied and Locked My Boss Out of His Own Home." I used to work as a property manager for a semi-large company in a small city. Among the usual duties of a PM, we were also responsible for after-hours maintenance calls. Originally, we were paid for 3 hours of overtime to cover the phone calls we answer and paid an additional $80 for any call-outs we have to attend ourselves. The entire team rotated the phone between us, so we only had the emergency phone for one weekend every 2 months. The phone was an after-hours maintenance line for over 800 properties, so you can imagine how busy it would get, but the extra pay helped the blow of losing your weekend. This was not a problem until our boss wanted to crack down on overtime hours, stating, "I very much doubt you are working 3 hours whilst you have the emergency phone." His new rule was for each staff member to document when and who called, and you would be paid an hour of regular time each call. But under no circumstances are you to attend any issues yourself. This includes unlocking doors for tenants who are locked out of their property. He enforced that the tenant must pay for a locksmith to attend and let themselves in. This angered many of our clients and caused us to be constantly abused over the phone by our tenants, as they had to pay $300 for a locksmith. This is where the malicious compliance began. We indeed documented all our calls, which instead of paying each employee $100 for 3 hours, he ended up having to pay us $500 or more each weekend due to the amount of calls we would actually take. But it doesn't stop there. What I should probably mention is that our company can provide accommodation for our more higher staff at a fraction of the cost you would normally pay. The manager in question was in such accommodation, and lo and behold, he managed to lock himself out of his apartment at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. Manager: "Hello op. I have locked myself out of my apartment. You need to collect the spare keys and come unlock my door op." "I am very sorry, manager, but I cannot do that." Manager: "Excuse me? Why not?" Op: "Unfortunately you have instructed me not to attend to any call-outs under any circumstance. I can however send you through the number of our preferred locksmith to come let you in." After a few choice words, the manager hung up and phoned a locksmith. Let's just say, after he had to fork out $300 for an after-hours locksmith, he changed our ability to attend call-outs. The next one is titled, "I Thought You Wanted Your Money Back?" So this happened to me when I was still employed at a popular video game retail chain. Won't name names, but let's say that it's the place to stop for your game. I worked there for about 8 years, and this occurred around the last year I was with that company when I was a store manager. Now, in my area, we have about 5 of these stores. Because of this, it's not unusual for another store to send someone to you if you had a particular product in stock that a guest wanted. No worries, we'll take care of them. I got this kind of call that day and was sent a guest who wanted to pick up a pre-owned version of a newer video game that had just come out. I don't remember what game it was, only that it was still pretty new at the time. As he came up, I already had the game pulled and was starting to take care of him. He had the paid membership that we offer and a $5 off coupon. Now this is where I have to throw some math out at you. At the time, the membership gave people a 10% discount on any used games they purchased. This game was $54.99 and proudly advertised the discounted price of $49.49 for members on the label. However, coupons worked in the system in a quirky way. Essentially, any coupons took off the standard price of the game in the system. In this case, it was $54.99, making it $49.99 with the coupon before the 10% discount took effect. I usually explain this to guests before they use the coupon, because most of the time they expect it to take off the discount price, i.e. $49.49 minus $5 equals $44.49. This also leads most people to believe that they're losing money by using a coupon. After explaining how it works, however, most people understood and were okay with it, or decided to just wait and save their coupon for later. Once again, no worries. Glad I could help. After going through my usual spiel with this guest and explaining the coupon oddity, he said that's fine, and we finished up the transaction. As I hand him his receipt, he takes a look at it and promptly says, "Wait, this price is wrong." "What do you mean?" It should have been cheaper. The coupon should have taken off the lower price. No, no, no. I already explained this as I attempt to tell him the spiel again. No. The coupon should take off the lower price that's advertised. At this point, he was starting to become irate. This being my last year at this job, I was pretty done with most things. Cue my malicious compliance. What this person didn't realize is just how much he supposedly lost by it not taking off the lower price. It was a 50-cent difference. I looked at him and said, "You know what, okay then. I'll refund the difference for you, sir." I popped my register, grabbed 2 quarters and forcefully placed them on the counter. He sees the 2 quarters and I can physically see the gears turn in his head. "Here you go." "Oh man, I mean, that wasn't my point." "Okay, then what was your point?" "I thought you wanted your money back?" "Nah, man. It should just work the other way." "I already explained why it does that. It's not going to change, but I am happy to take care of you still." This led to him wanting to speak with a district manager, DM. We didn't give out our DM's number to just anyone, they usually call you. I contacted my current DM at the time, explained the situation, and left it in his hands. I told the guest my DM will call you and he accepted this and left. I later came to find out that this wasn't the guest's first time complaining about this. He had already been told before how it works and I guess still decided to cause more issues with me at a different store. My DM informed me that he didn't do anything more than explain what I had already explained to him and I never heard about it again. Moral of the story, always pick your battles, especially when only 50 cents is on the line. Also, to answer the burning question, he didn't take the 50 cents. The last one is titled, "Just Clean the Damn Jet." I currently work at a repair station that does the mechanic work on aircraft, and US airlines are starting to ground their flights. My work is starting to get 65 of these jets to park and get ready for storage, although they must all be sanitized when they arrive at our hangar. Whenever any work is performed on a plane, even if it is just cleaning the plane's cockpit and cabin, main area people sit, you have to do it per what the maintenance manual for that aircraft says. You have to use exactly what cleaner it calls for and exactly do every step in the process. Well, this process, for the cleaning specifically regarding the section for the cockpit, calls for Celeste cleaner specifically to clean the screens. My crew is very new at cleaning these jets and thus we have been asking a lot of questions about the manual's procedure on cleaning. We asked around and nobody has been using this cleaner in the whole hangar, most people just say Windex or alcohol wipes. I brought this up to my boss that we don't even have the correct cleaners for the job, so we cannot perform the entire card and sign it off. My boss just said to clean the damn jet with whatever I was told to use. Cue malicious compliance. I told all the guys in my group to just use the Windex and clean all the screens, well knowing it could mess the screens up, but then again I gotta clean the damn jet. So my crew cleans the first 11 or so jets when a supervisor comes to me and complains that all the screens have big smudge marks and some may even need new screens. I went up to inform my boss about the issue and he yelled at me for using the incorrect cleaner that the manual does not specifically call for. I reminded him that I brought this up to him and that I cleaned that damn jet, so what was the issue? My boss ended up getting badly scolded for this incident and we now have the correct cleaner ordered and get it this week. Never been so excited to get a bottle of cleaner just to rub it in my boss's face. Thanks for listening.